We met just a few moments ago with the children, with Razi and Harel and Gilad. Sorry, I couldn't remember how to pronounce his name. I had to ask Terry yesterday. And Gilad, and we did this ritual of Kriya, which is to tear a ribbon that is part of your clothing. We said Baruch Dayan Ha'emet, praised be is the true judge, and that's how we began our service today. But in the words of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, and a time for every experience under heaven. We have a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for gaining and a time for losing, and this is the time for losing. The time of mourning is a complicated time. It's filled with many emotions and memories, some bitter and some sweet. But we begin our service today with a recitation of Psalms and readings, thus linking Dennis's life with the 3,000-year-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God. I normally begin these services with the chanting of the 23rd Psalm. Rabbi Sachs is here. I've asked him if he would participate and chant this, and he was gracious enough to say yes, so I invite him here to do that.
He's more than Tavi. Adonai roi lo echsar. Bino tesheyar bitzeni. Amei menuchot yenahaleini. Nafshi yeshovet. Nafshi yeshovet. Yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki helech b'gei salmavet lo hirara ki ata imadi shivtecha Umishantecha, Shivtecha, Umishantecha, Hemayanachamuni, Taroch lefanai shulchan, Taroch lefanai shulchan, Taroch lefanai shulchan, Neged Zorerai. Dishanta Vashem Roshi, Dishanta Vashem Roshi, Dishanta Vashem Roshi, Kosi Revaya, Achtov Vachesed, Yirdefuni, Kol Yamei Chayai, Veshavti Beveit Adonai, Veshavti Beveit Adonai, V'yorech Yamim, Yadadai Dai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai 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 Dai. Yai dai dai dai, yada dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai
The English translation is, as most of you know, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We've already done more than Dennis wanted for a service. So we will keep this short, but I do want to do a few readings to give this service the respect that this deserves. And I begin with a reading from the works of the philosopher Ben Sira. We are all destined to die. We share it with all who ever lived and with all who ever will be. Cry for the dead. Hide not your grief. Do not restrain your mourning, but remember that continuing sorrow is worse than death. When the dead are at rest, let their memory be a source of peace, and be consoled when the soul departs. Death is better than a life of pain, and eternal rest is better than constant sickness. Let us not seek to understand what is too difficult for us, nor search for what is hidden, nor be preoccupied with what is beyond, for we have already been shown more than we can comprehend. As a drop of water in the sea, as a grain of sand on the shore, so too are our few days in eternity. The good things in life last only a short time, but a good reputation endures forever. Also from Ben Sira, a very short reading. When parents who have taught their children pass on, that passing is not a death. As long as the child lives, there is a part of the parent that cannot die. When alive, a parent rejoices with children, and in death, that parent will not grieve. From the Wisdom of Solomon. A good person, though taken from us too soon, will rest in peace. For honor in old age does not come from length of life. Honor in old age does not come from length of years. Understanding is the gray hair of humanity. A blameless life is ripeness of age. Perfection in limited years is like living for many years. So a good person, though taken from us too soon, will rest in peace. Let us then, with peace of mind, let that good soul rest. I did a funeral at Bet Am a couple of weeks ago, and the rabbi was in Israel, and I really didn't know the person that well. And sometimes it's difficult for us as rabbis to properly eulogize someone under those circumstances. But in this case, we have people who knew Dennis, who loved Dennis, who knew him much better than I. And I would like to call on them to eulogize him. And we begin with Razi. Did you want to go first?
Okay. When I sat down to maybe write something, I realized that my father would be saying, "Stop it, go write your dissertation," because that's what he's been telling to me for a while. And I had joked with him that I was going to play Peggy Lee's "Is That All There Is," which, if you are familiar with, would be apt for him. But I also figured that it would be remiss if we did not bring Marlena for him. And so there's a few things that I sort of pulled out. The first one is what he would think about all of this, which is bizbuz, a Hebrew word meaning waste, which I've added to my vocabulary because it sounds more humorous and not as accusing as waste. He did not want a fuss. He did everything he could to not have a fuss up until the end as well. He did not want to linger. And I think he knew in some way that this was coming. And I'm obviously really, really sad, and I don't think it's hit yet, but he was, despite all of the challenges he had, an amazing father for me, and someone who is probably one of the people I've been closest to in this world and has most understood me. And I'm going to miss him a whole lot. And I don't actually think I can say much more right now.
like my sister, my dad was an amazing father, especially these last few years. I was with him up until the end, and even through that, he never made a fuss. He's in a lot of pain near the end, but he never really complained about it. I think what I'm going to miss most is he is a great cook. He had his baked mac and cheese recipe, which he's now shared on, but it just never comes out the same when I make it. A love for horror movies. Remember watching things like Frankenstein, Dracula growing up. And words really can't express how much I'm going to miss him. And I think I'm going to cut it here because he really would not have wanted any more of a fuss on any of this. I want to start out by reading something from his sister, Carol. I loved my brother since the day our mother held him up to a new window in the Melrose Wakefield Hospital window. After 65 years together, I still love him. I will miss him his many kindnesses, his compassion for others, and his smartness. I will always admire his strength and integrity as he tried so hard to remain independent as he coped with his many health issues. I'm devastated that he passed, but I will love Dennis forever. That's from Sister Carol. My father, one thing I will always remember about him is he was kind to everyone around him. Everyone he met always seemed to care about him, as do I, and loved him. He always had a good sense of humor about him, and I miss him dearly, and I want to cut it here.
There was one other thing I wanted to say in that moment, but as we all know, my father was a philosopher all of the time. And a teacher, the person who he agreed with most, was Bishop Barkley, actually, despite his conversion things. And one of the things that he said, chatting as his body was failing him, right? Not the body, so we would continually tell each other the body's not real. Unfortunately, when I was looking at one of his copies of Berkeley earlier, one of the things that he had actually put a question mark next to was eternity is only a train of innumerable ideas, hence the immortality of the soul is easily conceived, or rather the immortality of the person. And I wanted to be sure I shared that.
Well, with those sentiments in mind, I would like to remind you all of our Jewish belief that behind me in the box is the mortal remains of Dennis, but his soul is somewhere else. I like to think he's here amongst us and taking part in this service in one way or another, but we have to say goodbye to his mortal remains as well. So in just a moment, we will be lowering the casket with the assistance of the family. And we will then proceed to cover his coffin with earth. And as Rabbi Braun likes to remind people, we have the family do that first, and then everyone can participate. And for the rest of eternity, the soil that is next to Dennis will be there, put there by ones who loved him the most. And that gives me some comfort. I hope it does you as well. So at this point, I would like to invite Gilad and Harel and Razi and yeah. So what I'm going to have you two do, we're going to lower the box, but I'd like two of you would have to lift it up this way. Okay. Oh, really? We're just serendipitous.
You have to do two. No, one or two, whatever you want to do.
Is there anybody left who would like to discuss with? One of them is to recite the Gilgal prayer, traditional Rabbi, sing that, chant that.
ability right in this moment. El Malay Rachamim. שלוחם במרומים, המצא מנוחה נוחה, תחת כנפי השכינה. במעלות קדושים ותואמים, נוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת עובדיה בן אברהם ושרה, שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו. אנא בעל הרחמים הסתרהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים. צרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא חטאו וינוח שלום על משכבו. ונאמר
Amen.
אמן.
Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Ovadia bat Avraham Visara, Dennis Biggie, who is gone to his eternal home. Merciful one, we ask that Dennis find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace forever. And let us say, Amen. And now the final part of the service is to recite the Mourner's Kaddish. I see many of you have cards, and I will begin with the family and ask you to join in with us. But for the first time, as we discussed yesterday, between all of us, we are going to cover it for the next 11 months. So we continue and we conclude with the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbi v'yalmad yivrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael v'agala u'vizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach v'olam v'lalmei olamaya v'yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpoar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudisha richu le'ela minkol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran v'yalma v'imru amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Thank you all for coming to help comfort the family. We ask them that they be comforted among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem as they exit the cemetery. We ask that you make space for them to come between us, and we offer our morning greetings. Everybody is invited back to the residence of Carol so that you can have a little bit of time together. And at 4 o'clock, we will do a Shiva service. Shiva service will be tomorrow from, what do you say, 1 until 8? And then again on Friday for an abbreviated time. After that point, the family will get up from Shiva and continue on their way. I think that Razi will likely do Shiva again in New York. So you're all invited back, and it is 15 Coral Burst Lane in Scarborough. Plenty of parking. Did you get those jelly sandwiches yet? No jelly sandwiches? Okay, plenty of parking and good food to eat. Thank you all. Go get some books. How you